It's not getting in.
Alright, so welcome everybody out there in podcast land. The Good Times with Good People Company proudly presents the Loft Party Podcast, where it is always about good times, good people, and good talk. Good. Now that you've received your invitation, join us. Grab a cocktail, light a cigar, or whatever you like to smoke. Tell a friend, and welcome to the party. I'm your host and moderator, Rio, and let me introduce today's panel. Today we got a smaller panel than normal. We got some people out of town. We got some other people doing other things that are apparently very clandestine. And the anonymous female will be running late today. But we do have our returning champion, Chris O'Connor, a co-owner of Liquid 9 Broadcast Media, and Ben Roberts, the Pendergast Club's resident bartender extraordinaire. So Ben was looking something up before we get started with the show, and so I'll even wait to give you what the actual title of the episode is and all that, because I want to hear what Ben has found.
Well, came across another one of the Trump administration's senior advisors, an aide named Stephen Miller. And apparently he, while at Duke University, did some work with a guy named Richard Spencer. And Richard Spencer is really big in the scene with a group called the National Policy Institute, NPI, which Wikipedia claims is a white supremacist organization. Now I'm looking at their website, which is mpiamerica.org, and it says MPI is an independent organization dedicated to the heritage, identity, and future of people of European descent in the United States and around the world.
Oh, well, that is a white supremacist.
Oh, wow. Yeah, they did. They just came right on out and said it.
They didn't even pretend.
And so the media, I guess, at some point in time. So what Steve Miller actually did was, while at Duke University in his undergrad, getting a degree in political science, helped fundraise and organize an immigration debate in 2007 with Richard B. Spencer, who was one of the leaders of the National Policy Institute, and it was reported that he was mentored by Richard B. Spencer, but Stephen Miller said in retort that he had no relationship with Richard B. Spencer at the time, and then later went back and said it was a very, it was overstated. And, with the rise of Steve Bannon and the like in this administration, I think it's important that we note that we have yet another senior advisor who has some kind of ties to another person in the white supremacist community.
Yeah.
And I just think it's interesting that, every time we talk about the Trump administration, the other side is continually telling us to wait and see, stop being so critical. Yet I just don't understand how they can ask us to do so when we see people like this.
Yeah.
So do we know what his specific role is? Does it just say he's a special counselor or advisor?
Yeah.
Or is it is that generic? There's nothing he's actually in charge of? No specialty?
Yeah, it's pretty generic from what I could see. Again, like I came across this last night while I was drinking old fashioned, so I didn't get to do as much research as I'd like. But
what it seems like to me is he's gonna start going. So you know how Kellyanne Conway has really kind of become like the deflector in chief, and like I think from what it seems like anyway, he's about to be the arguer in chief. Like I'm trying to remember he was on talking to George Stephanopoulos on Sunday, and like it was getting really.
Bannon was, or
this Miller guy was on, and it was getting really tense because it wasn't even deflecting. It was just like basically saying, and I don't think anybody questions George Stephanopoulos' journalistic credibility. But he was basically just, like he was avoiding any hard answers to any questions, no matter what they were, and very hostilely kind of responding. And I always love to see George deal with hostile guests, because he doesn't really back down. He finds another way to either ask the question or restate what what was saying. And so it was getting tense. I was like, I hadn't seen George get that kind of testy. I've seen some other reporters like lose their patience, but it's just rare to see George loses patience with a guest, and he was losing his patience with that dude.
So I wonder if it's the case, and this is where you never know. One, you never know if it's overstated or not. I don't know. The fact that you have ties to a white supremacist group doesn't make me super excited. Yeah. But I don't know what his relationship was with the guy and all those kinds of things. I have no idea.
Well, there isn't any reported relationship with the organization directly, Steve Miller. It's a relationship with a
guy who was
major
member
in
the organization.
Yeah, so still in and still active.
And I guess that was my point. It's like, at what point do you become responsible for the people that you may have hung around when you were younger and dumber and all that kind of stuff, who are stupid? If you knew somebody wasn't avowed racist and just hated white people, but also had other kinds of good qualities.
Yeah. They might have been a good guy, except for this.
One of the shitty things they do.
Except for this thing.
I always wonder, could I actually hang around somebody like that, or would that just be too big of a thing? Because it would definitely be a topic that we would never be able to discuss.
Which is what I was just thinking. I'm like, like I say, I got some fairly militant friends, and that's just topics we just can't talk about.
Right.
Because they will become an argument. They will become a divisive issue, and they don't need to be. And unless somebody says something like stupid and blatant,
sure.
And I'm like, okay, look, but yes, I don't know if we can hold people accountable for everybody you've ever spent any amount of time with in your life.
Right.
But I do really agree with, look at your 5 closest people around you.
Sure.
And because that's who you are, whether you think you are or not. And
people overlooked a lot of Obama's connections, and he had some fairly dubious connections coming out of Chicago that weren't.
I have some dubious connections coming out of Chicago.
Everybody does. That's Chicago.
I'm gonna say that's Chicago, right?
In Chicago, you're not in Chicago.
Yeah, exactly.
But it's and this is not I don't even believe a racial thing. I think he got grilled as much as he possibly could on those things, and I get alarmed by just the sheer number of. If you want to call them coincidences that are going on with the people that he's picking for his current cabinet. And there's a very consistent theme at this point, which is we really like white dudes. That's who we kind of want to let in the country. Otherwise, we're going to make it really hard and make it extreme vetting, which doesn't even mean anything.
Yeah.
That was the best part of Saturday Night Live, if you saw that.
I missed Saturday Night Live this week. And,
God, it was great. Melissa McCarthy again as Steve Spencer talking about extreme vetting. Oh my God, it's funny. If you haven't seen it, watch it on the Hulu list. It's really good.
Yeah.
Hey, it's funny. All right, so before we get any further, actually today's topic, episode 45, is, excuse me, what's your return policy? Retail dumps Trumps. And as we always do, I want to start with an RIP, and of course that is for the jazz legend Al Jarreau. I know a lot of people out there probably don't know who Al Jarreau is, but I definitely grew up hearing a fair amount of Al Jarreau music around the house and on the radio in Chicago, and so That's just a voice I know very well, and I think he passed yesterday morning, and
It's
so
slightly lesser known just because he came along towards the tail end of the highlight of the Jazz years.
Exactly, and I
Still
think
a phenomenal talent.
And I think most people don't know the jazz vocalist the same way that they know, like the jazz instrumentalists.
Mm-hmm.
And
I think it depends on the era.
this is true.
This is true. Certainly people know Louis Armstrong, and again, Ella Fitzgerald, and those kinds of people. You could even make an argument for the white jazz stylings of like a Frank Sinatra or something.
Absolutely.
Tommy Dorsey and those kinds of guys. But yeah, you're right. Then it hit the era of Miles Davis and those guys, and it was all about free.
And so the later jazz vocalists, the later jazz vocalists just didn't get They got a lot of respect in the industry, but not as much public notoriety as their instrumental counterparts. So I was looking, and okay, so we were kind of talking before the show started, and we were talking about how kind of, I guess, coincidental to say the least, all of these businesses and services that are backing away from selling Trump products, and so I just kind of want to run down a list of the ones that we know have backed away, and then we can kind of discuss it. So even though he was going to be on Trump's economic advisory board, the CEO of Google stepped back and pulled Uber's support of Trump.
Wow.
Nordstrom, we know, pulled Ivanka's line. Macy's pulled. Neiman Marcus pulled. HSN, Home Shopping Network, they pulled. What is that? Shoes.com, because she does have a shoe line. They pulled. Belk, which I think is another. They do shoes and handbags, and I think it's like a subscription type service. They pulled Wayfair, another. I think, if I'm not mistaken, they actually have stores, but they also have.
It was primarily online.
But I think it was primarily online, and they pulled the Trump home products, because that's basically what they do. Bellacore, which also did home products, they pulled, and wait a minute, Sears and Kmart pulled. It's just like a mass exodus. TJ Maxx and Marshalls, they didn't completely pull, but they decided that they weren't going to do any prime placement for
a half-ass thing to do.
Yeah. So I guess with TJ Maxx and Marshalls, I don't think they're planning on reordering any of the stuff, but instead of like just dumping what they have, they pulled all of the prime placement and just integrated it into
They're already a second-hand kind of a place
anyway. Exactly. Let me see. I want to make sure that was it, because I thought there was one more, but that might be Jet, which is basically an online service. They pulled. There was so many at once. I was just like, wait a minute. Shop Style and Guilt.
Guild pulled or stuff?
Guild pulled, yeah.
Wow.
So I was just like, I'm just going through the list, just like, good gravy. Like, I know when Nordstrom pulled, what they were saying was that Ivanka's stuff just wasn't selling that well anyway. So I guess my question and thought is, one, what do we think about all these retailers pulling? And two, how many of these do we think are protest? And how many probably just weren't selling that well anyway?
Well, is Nordstrom's official position that that's why they're pulling the product? Is because
that's why they
what
said
they
they
publicly said is that she wasn't moving inventory.
Okay, well then I'm totally okay with that. But do I think that some of these companies are doing it in protest? I would say probably. Don't you think?
I would say if you think of Nordstrom's average shopper, do you really think that they're Democratic or Republican for the most part? I think they have a lot of very wealthy Republican shoppers.
I think so
that
too.
go in there. So that is an interesting thing to me. That one strikes me as weird. Some of the higher end retailers.
Yeah, the higher end retailers were the ones that kind of struck me like
on Ivanka's stuff.
Yeah, right.
Today. And I also think this goes back to look. Listen, she's an adult. She's not like a presidential kid, but at the same time, she didn't do anything wrong. Her dad ran for president and won. Congratulations. She's an accomplished businesswoman in her own right who's now bearing the brunt of people who hate her dad. I don't care if you want to get rid of his stupid tie line and all that.
Right.
All he really does is license his name out on this stuff. And truly, the more I've been thinking about it since we've been sitting here, all you're honestly doing is hurting manufacturers and other businesses who make these lines and most likely putting people out of work, to be perfectly honest.
Yeah.
And I don't like that. Now, I'm all in favor. Everybody has the right to free speech. You can carry whatever you want in your stores, and that's great. Congratulations to you. I still think a lot of these stores are going to have a major backlash and protest against them, and a lot of people will stop shopping at their stores, and maybe on the flip side, maybe more Democrats will start going, hey, I should go over there because they got rid of their
definitely did notice on social media that there were a lot of people, that were protesting the store specifically for carrying those products, and I don't necessarily agree with that. I don't think that, like you said, this is Ivanka. It's not her father's product, so why?
She seems to be pretty cool, to be perfectly honest.
Yeah, I personally don't have a problem with her. But there are a lot of people who, I guess, by association with the name, said, hey, we're not going to shop at these stores until they get rid of Ivanka products, and maybe some of these stores ran like their demographics or whatever, and was like, yeah, we're going to lose money if we don't dump this stuff. It's not, maybe it was selling a little bit, but it wasn't selling that great anyway, so they just ran the numbers and were like, yep, this is the right move. Because these are big companies, and they're thinking about money at the end of the day, so that this is probably a financial decision for the most part.
I think even if her line wasn't moving, they run the risk of making it look like a political protest, which I think most people don't give a shit what. So here's one, and I'll throw out a different analogy on this. What about when Hobby Lobby sued because they're very much a Christian organization and a private organization and didn't want to offer birth control as part of the insurance package, when Obama claimed that your insurance would not change, and it clearly did, and that became a requirement, all of a sudden they were denied the right to put in their own policies, but these guys can do whatever they want as far as what they want to do. I don't know. I know a lot of people have stopped going to Hobby Lobby when that happened, and I was chief amongst them. I'll never go back to Hobby Lobby again. One, I didn't know they were so oddly religious, but I don't shop there very often, but... Dude, if I need crafts, I'm going to go to Michael's.
Yeah, exactly.
I'll go anywhere else but there now because I think they're a bunch of vehicles.
Yeah, I think when I found out that they weren't open on Sundays, I was like, are they a religious company? Because that's usually the only reason you're not open on a Sunday.
Right. And how much did Chick-fil-A get killed? Chick-fil-A got, not part of the term, but they got grilled, when they decided, when they came out and were homophobic as a company.
Yeah, they had to do some damage control there. They're doing fine now.
They bounced back, sure.
Yeah, but at the time, they took a real hit. Yeah, there were a lot of people who were like, nope.
I still will never ever in my life eat at Chick-fil-A because of that. Fuck you, I have too many good gay dudes that I really like, and then women, to judge somebody for their lifestyle and put in a corporate policy private or public. I just think it's ridiculous.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like I say, if as far as I'm concerned, I think yes, they run the risk of kind of as many shoppers were protesting they won't shop there because you are selling. I think you run the risk of just as many saying I won't shop there because you pulled their products.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
But if at the end of the day, protest or not, if it was a sound business decision, who would we to say if they were sound business decisions?
All right, but let's be honest. They all came out at once and said it's not a sound business decision. That I think is
well, and that's the reason why I say it. I don't know if the first couple did it and then they were like, well, let's see if we're actually even moving this stuff anyway, or if the first couple did it and they were like, yeah, that's how we could show them,
maybe not. I'm going to err on the side of the fact that I think these are a lot of political decisions that are being made, and I don't have a problem with it, but I do find it ironic that Democrats hate it when companies and super PACs and these large groups get involved in politics, but they're okay with it when it's on their side.
Yeah.
And I find that to be just a little hypocritical. I honestly don't give a shit what Macy's thinks about politics. I can care less.
Yeah, and to tell you the truth, I actually don't want Macy's to think much about politics.
Oh, yeah.
I want you to sell me that Sean John sweater. That's what I want.
Macy's basically needs to try to stay in business right now. I mean, they're not killing it.
Yeah.
I'm like,
speaking of which, Macy's, if you're out there and you're listening to this podcast, and I'm sure you are because this podcast is fabulous, but listen, when you came into the Chicago market strong, as a matter of fact, when you came into just about every market strong, you did something that I've never agreed with, and I can't see how it actually made you any money. So, every market, just about, had one strong department store retailer.
Commercial fields.
But you moved them out, put your names on those buildings, and all those stores became Macy's. And I just don't understand why Macy's Corp couldn't have, ran the business, but left that city or whatever city it was with the store that they knew and loved. In particularly in Chicago, Marshall Fields. Yeah. Because Marshall Fields was not some podunk retailer. I mean, people came in from all over the world on some tourist shit just to go to Marshall Fields. Yeah, like that was a name that would have just been, I thought would have been proud to pull into the Macy's family of businesses versus turning every store into a Macy's, which makes no store special, which to me decreases sales overall. You're like all ships may be floating, but they're floating on a lower tide. To me.
I also think it denies you, and again, there are clearly people smarter than me, running these companies. So I don't know. I view it as a consumer as, you have the same crap and everything. You just denied a city one of their most cultural icons, which was Marshall Fields store. It was amazing. And beyond that, you now lack the ability to diversify and do kind of specialized lines.
Which is kind of what I was thinking.
Marshall Fields meant high end.
Yeah.
Macy's does not mean high end.
No, Macy's is the every consumer.
It's a step above JCPenney's and Sears.
Yeah. And like you said, whereas
Marshall Fields.
Yeah, Marshall Fields was the high end. I mean, as a matter of fact, I remember years ago when I was working retail, they would do the customer service rankings every year. And Marshall Fields and Nordstrom's kind of volleyed back and forth for number one in customer service. And now that's just not an option. you know, and like I say, I always thought that certain cities had brands that could only help the Macy's profile, but they chose to make every store Macy's.
Yeah.
And to tell you the truth, in Chicago, I actually was okay with the vast majority of the stores becoming Macy's,
Not
especially
the flagship.
but not the flagship store, not 111 North State Street.
Nope.
That should have stayed. That just if for nothing but historical basis.
What a meant to the city.
Yeah, that should have stayed Marshall Fields. But you know,
I'll give you a good example of somebody who did a fairly good job acquiring other businesses. A lot of people.
that's like if Halls here in Kansas City became Macy's.
Sure.
Like
Ridiculous.
It would be so ridiculous. The quality would drop through the floor because Macy's couldn't carry half of the stuff that Halls carries.
Halls, yeah, okay.
But take Sears on the other hand, where they would buy up a lot of different companies.
Yeah.
For example, they had Discover Card for a long time. They had a favorite
Really?
insurance company. Oh yeah, that was a Sears product. Then they buy LL Bean.
Yeah.
They bought a bunch of different things and let them kind of operate on their own. Didn't want to lose the appeal of the brand.
Right.
But it all fed into one centralized Sears distribution center, which made it more efficient. And I get that, but they got the benefit of both things, I thought, for a very long time.
Yeah.
And the only reason I think they ever started to suffer was just the general decline in malls themselves.
Exactly.
You know,
Exactly.
So.
Exactly. So
That's a good point, though.
yeah. So out there in podcast land, I don't know if it was right or wrong to dump any of the Trump's lines if it was a purely political move, I don't think that was right.
But if they do it to Donald, I just don't like it doing it to kids.
Yeah.
Like what the hell does she do?
Yeah, the presidential kid. Well, I will say this.
I mean, she's fairly active, I guess.
Yeah, I will say this. She did say that she was, not going to have an active role in the administration. I think the problem that we're seeing is that we're not necessarily seeing that she's not going to be active yet, because there's been one or two times already that probably his wife should have gone with him to something that he took Ivanka, and so I think this could just.
That she was vocal in any particular way. I thought she was very vocal on the trail, and I thought.
Well, I don't think she's been vocal since he's taken office,
and I think she pushed him in a lot of different directions that were to his benefit. Like, she was a very strong women rights supporter, came out and did a lot of work to make sure that was part of the campaign platform and things along those lines. Because he clearly had a problem with that, but she legitimately has been a very strong. I want to put her up with Sheryl Sandberg, but I'd put her somewhere in that neck of the woods of she's really worked hard to kind of advance women's rights and get more women in business at higher levels of corporations and things along those lines. And I do respect the fact that, like, she is an extremely religious, Orthodox Jew because of her husband. And, converted and lives by it very strictly. And I respect her for a lot of those things. So, I don't know. I don't feel like she deserved it. But I do feel like, dude, if you want to yank Donald Trump's crap off the shelf.
Well, he shouldn't have any dealings in private business as it is, right? Being the president of the United States.
So what essentially happens is you're supposed to put your assets into a blind trust. Yeah. So he can continue the licensing deals he already had, because really it's just people licensing his name. He's not sitting there making furniture by any stretch.
Right.
It's just furniture makers license his name to be able to sell it. And all that is held through a blind trust. In theory, a blind trust, but then he put his family in charge of
the blind trust. And that's the problem. So which kind of nullifies what a blind trust is in the first place, right? Because you're right. About to say, because you've got American Psycho 1 and 2.
And he's like, we're just not going to talk about it at dinner. We will bring it up. Really?
I'm like, yeah, right.
You're just like the question of, hey, how's my blind trust doing? Is it ever popping up?
So with all the companies dumping Trump stuff, at the beginning, so at the beginning, which violates so many ethical rules, it's crazy. The president tweets, Nordstrom's treating his daughter so unfairly, sad, but which in itself violates some ethical rules, which we won't even go into. But then the double down of sending Kellyanne Conway on the talk show circuit, and then she's not only wasting public time defending it, because you shouldn't have any. Not only shouldn't he have anything to do with his business, you shouldn't be out there, punditing for things happening in his family's business.
Yeah.
You're actually saying, I'm going to give you a free commercial for Ivanka's stuff, which does come across as an offhanded comment, but it's an offhanded comment that ethically you aren't supposed to be able to make.
I'll stick up for on this in that I do not think it violated ethics rules in this sense. If you honestly believe that the moves were political moves that were being made, then I think you have every right to say, okay, on a political level, I wish people would ban these stores, but don't go to these stores, for this reason. If she just got on there and said, hey, I think you should buy Ivanka Trumps shoes just because they're cool, then I would say, okay.
Because basically it was like...
That's not remotely what she said.
Yeah, she was like, she's being treated unfairly.
For political reasons.
And her stuff is great. I own a lot of it. You should go buy it. In fact, I'm going to do a free commercial. Her stuff is great. Go buy it. And I was like, whoa, wait a minute.
I don't feel like the spirit of the comment violated the ethical rules, only because I felt like it was a political comment against people who were politically protesting against them versus QVC, and hawking goods, just because she's on Meet the Press. I felt like the spirit of it was entirely different.
And I can see where you're coming from.
You don't think Kellyanne Conway was taking a cut of Ivanka's profits for getting up and speaking for her?
Yeah, what the hell does she care if Ivanka really sells shoes? I think she really was getting a slightly outraged, and some people are outraged that the large list of stores
the large
that you
list
just read are dropping his stuff, and I would have to assume a very fair number of them are based on political reasons. And I don't think it's completely unfair to say, hey, let's fight back a little bit. Let's protest these stores, or let's go, buy inventory, whatever the case, to show these people that they're wrong.
Right.
And that doesn't bother me. Now, if the spirit of it was, hey, my income's dropping, so go hawk my shoes.
Now that's something different.
Yeah, but I don't think that was the case.
And I actually do tend to agree with you. I'm still, for me, the jury is still out of whether or not ethically she should have been mentioned in it at all. But in hearing how it came up, I don't think that she meant to do a commercial.
She was asked a question about all these companies dropping the Trump product lines.
Right. Yeah, she was asked a question.
For political reasons.
Yeah, and I guess my concern is, where was she supposed to cut off her response?
Draw that line,
where was she supposed to cut off her response? Was it, I think politically, if you're persecuting her business for political reasons, I don't think that's cool. Exactly. I think that's where I have the problem, is that she went the next step in saying, no, her products are great, you should go out and buy them. I was like, whoa, that's a step further than I think you should have went with that.
That's a very fair point.
Yeah.
And I think that may have, in my mind, barely crossed the line, but it could have. I can see why people think that did cross the line.
Yeah.
I don't think it was intended in the way that.
Yeah, I don't think it was intended that way. But like I say, it's just what I'm finding.
She's a smart girl.
Yeah, it's like what I'm finding with the Trumps in general is they may not know where the line is.
Yeah.
You know, it's like it like Trump and his cabinet people and his pundits, and like I don't think they actually know where the line is. So I think this is, which we kind of talked about a couple podcasts ago. Like I don't think going in and quote unquote draining the swamp and then placing a complete round table of people who don't know anything about how government works, how policy works, is helpful just purely because you're going to make these kind of mistakes.
Sure.
You know, and anyway. So let's move.
Here's the funny point, though, and just to put a bow on that, everybody wants people who are non-politicians to be in politics until they fuck up real bad and realize that you actually have to know something about politics to be a politician.
To be a politician.
Yeah, and this is why whenever people make the argument, they're an outsider, they're going to come in and change it. Like, no, they're not. They're going to get screwed by the system. The system's been around forever, and you will end up
Shoot
the loser.
up,
Yeah.
spit
Ask
out.
Jimmy Carter how that went down.
Oh, yeah.
And it did not go well.
What they say? What's that old saying? They say they say you don't change the devil changes you.
Mm-hmm.
That's just what it is. Okay, so let's move forward. What is it? The next thing. You know what? I don't think I printed that out, but I'm sure everybody here has something to add about it. So Elizabeth Warren, when she was trying to read a letter that Corettas King wrote about Jeff Sessions, and she wasn't allowed to read it because it violated, or so Mitch McConnell says, it violated a rule that Senate colleagues can't disparage each other. Yeah, they can't disparage each other on the floor. But
Is that really
so,
a rule?
No, it is a rule.
It's a technical rule.
Yeah,
that gets violated constantly.
Yeah, exactly. So
that's why you always hear him say, my esteemed colleague from North Carolina, who's a complete moron.
Yeah, right. The distinguished gentleman from, but what bothered me wasn't, because if that's the rule, that's the rule. But two things bothered me, actually. One, she wasn't reading her words. She was reading the words of the wife of probably the greatest American we've ever produced. And two, after she was shut down, like 8 other guys read the damn letter anyway.
Yeah.
So that is what struck me even more than the rule, which I just thought was just a stupid rule. Mm-hmm. But but I was like, so that kind of blatant piece of sexism, was kind of really outstanding to me, because I'm thinking, if that's the case, and you're not allowed to do that, not allowed to disparage on the floor, how were they allowed to read the letter? And
I will throw out that I do not think this was a sexist thing, to be perfectly honest. I think everybody knows that she is the leading Democratic candidate for president in the next election. I think that has far more to do with shutting somebody down and not wanting her to have a brilliant moment in public than saying, we're going to shut down a woman because she's a woman and reading it. Now, I also feel very strongly that to ever disparage Corettas King in any way, shape, or form, you're a complete moron.
Exactly.
And, I had the pleasure of meeting her. She was delightful. She did our high school graduation speech.
Oh, wow.
And,
that's awesome.
Pizza was in Wichita at the time, and they flew her in to give the commencement speech at my high school, and she spent a lot of time with us and was one of the most amazing women that I've ever met in my life. And just, look at her life and you would know that is a fact.
Right.
So you're picking a fight with somebody who do not
want to pick a fight with. Right.
Period. You will never win that argument. But I don't know that it was a sexist thing. I think it was literally denying the leading Democrat, the most public Democrat, the one who's going to probably beat your ass in the next 4 years,
yes.
a moment in the sun.
Yes. And I can go with that. I don't think it's right, but I think I think your reasoning is probably correct.
And on top of wrong, just strategically a terrible move.
Yeah. I mean, my God. So Mitch McConnell, who could have lost to Ashley Judd, for God's sakes, is from Kentucky. I'm like, no, you should probably learn to let some of this slide because A, you look kind of racist, and B, very misogynistic.
Yeah, right. You know, whether you meant it that way or not,
right.
That's exactly how you look, though.
Yeah.
And so
I think not come across as a shining moment.
No, it did not. In fact, I think you handed her a present.
And the way he did it was so argumentative and just ridiculous, and it seemed, you want to talk about not disparaging people on the floor,
right?
And all of a sudden, it seemed like he really attacked her with a fair amount of vitriol, I thought.
Yeah.
And again, a lot of times, as a guy, maybe I misperceive the amount of vitriol that's really there when you're attacking a woman.
But it felt...
It just seemed...
It felt a little extra.
It really did.
Yeah.
It felt strong.
Yeah.
I'm like, you do not have to do that. This is nonsense.
Yeah, this is probably a bad look for you, Mitch. Yeah, which actually got me to thinking, which I already believe. So all of the gains in the past 3 to 4 elections that the Republicans have seen, I'm wondering how quickly that's going to dissipate, because you're going to get a ton of seats coming up in the next 2 years for Congress, and then 2 years after that is the Senate and the presidency again, and I'm wondering how quickly that balance of power will teeter right back over.
It will not shift in the next 2 years, because the vast majority of the seats that are up for re-election are Democratic seats. So I do not think you'll see an enormous shift in the makeup of Congress.
Yeah,
and that's the disadvantage.
You think they'll hold on to the seats they have, but it won't tip back over?
It will not tip back over for sure, particularly in the House or in the Senate, because the vast majority of people up for re-election are all Democrats.
Yeah.
So that's bad. Obviously, everybody in the House has to run every 2 years. That's just based on your district.
Mm-hmm.
And to be perfectly fair, the Republicans have absolutely slaughtered them at a state level.
Yeah.
And that's an infinitely bigger problem.
Yeah, it really is a much larger problem.
This is the Democrats doing. They need to get their act together.
Yeah, this is a much larger problem for the Democrats. I really do believe that, in a lot of ways, I am proud of I wouldn't necessarily even say liberal but for lack of a better word, the liberal side of the fence. Because I thought when the Tea Party was doing all of the massive protesting and going after every seat physically possible, I thought that if the Democrats could get this fired up, we could probably see some amazing sweeping changes. But it didn't seem like it was ever gonna happen. So in some weird ways, I feel like a Trump presidency is a gift to the left. Because it was a shot of adrenaline. Because I think people really thought, and God bless them, that we've got to the point where we got a black president now, and we're really moving in the right direction, but they were ignoring all of the low level grumblings, and they were thinking that all of the Tea Party people were kooks, but as they may have been kooks, they were also taking every seat available.
Yeah, very energetic kooks.
Yeah. So
I'll throw out there's plenty of number of kooks on the Democratic side. They tend to be single, and this is why I don't know that the Democratic Party can ever unite in one truly solid way, particularly at a state and local level, is they seem to be very much single issue candidates. You're either so pro-abortion, that's one group that you got. You're an environmentalist, you're a global warming person, you're this.
Right.
And none of them ever seem to really get organized on what they all think. And so, they don't, strangely, like, Republicans don't want to think the same thing too, but
they fall in line.
The vast majority of energetic voters are these weird, in the primaries, are these weird evangelicals who make sure that their candidate gets through. And not the one-offs like the Bernie Sanders was very much a kind of a one-trick pony dude who got young people involved who never vote, but who gives a crap. And the rest of them just don't get together. It would be the same thing as if, like, really, if every minority group in this country got together and said, let's all become one powerful voting bloc, well, you would destroy the Republican Party in a second. But nobody can agree on what all the issues are. And so a lot of them disagree. And it becomes a very divided group. Republicans are only divided about one thing. You have religious Republicans and you have financial Republicans. And that's the split.
Yeah, and that really is the Republican split. Yeah, where and I do agree that on the other side of the fence, that pie of issues is much larger, and they do have to find a way to unify those issues so that we don't have the kind of fracturing of the party message that has been what I think the Democrats' problem has been. There's so many, I won't even say special interests, but so many interests.
It's ridiculous.
That that you're not going to find one candidate that's pro everything every liberal wants, and if you do, they're insincere.
So this is a stupid example. It's an old one, but to me it identifies the problem that Democrats have had for years. So and it's not even particularly a great example, but it does remind me of it. So I remember I was a huge R.E.M. fan growing up. 1991, they cleaned up the Video Music Awards for Out of Time. Lose My Religion was on it. They won like 9 awards.
Right.
And Michael said, who I loved very much, he was like just an idol to me growing up, had on like 9 different political message T-shirts, and
taking one off. Yeah.
What are you not in favor of?
I do remember that.
This is so ridiculous. You're just throwing out all these stupid slogans that everybody thinks are just, that not everybody agrees with, but I get it. I don't care if everybody agrees or not. It just got to the point where you believe in so many things that none of them carry any weight anymore, and it got annoying.
Yeah.
Instead of being cool. And I was like, this is just getting out of hand. It's just getting stupid. So
yeah, you pick 1 or 2 issues
and be passionate
and really be passionate about and ride with those. That is something that the liberal side of the fence definitely needs to figure out what their 2 true, maybe even 3 true hot buttons are. You know,
they have some other
radical
serious problems. They have some other real problems with, I think, finances in particular. Because it's very easy to attract a young kid who's not making any money when you're promising them free shit and you know, they're all in favor of abortion, all that kind of stuff, until they hit 35 and all of a sudden they want a kid, and you know, and they're making some money for the first time and looking at the taxes that they're paying and going, where the hell is this going?
Exactly.
You know, you run into some real, I mean, it's the old saying that if you're young and not a Democrat, then you don't have a heart, and if you're old and not a Republican, you don't have a brain. Like, it's always been that saying.
Yeah.
You know, at some point, your ideology switches as your life switches.
Yeah.
And they're going to run into that problem.
I think that there are now more independents than there have ever been, probably.
I think so, too.
Yeah.
I think the independent party, I mean, I'm independent.
Me too.
And I always vote split ticket because I want nothing to get done. And I've said that a million times. I really don't want anybody to win. I want forced compromise.
Yeah.
Every time. That is good government to me, is forced compromise. So.
Yeah, like this, you two go in the room, do what you gotta do, duke it out, I don't care, but come to a decision that's beneficial for everybody.
We've thrown out the example of Bob Dylan Tip O'Neill 1,000 times, but
it's
a
true.
Classic historical example of let's find a way that we both win.
Exactly.
Neither one of us lose face, and we can go on.
And we can
pass
go on.
some of the best legislature this country's ever seen.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think the unfortunate reality now is that we have a lot of that going on, except it's for the benefit of the legislators instead of the people.
Well, and I think to a degree some of that's always been the case, but now you have so many people paying attention, and records are absolutely twisted. Like, they throw on writer after writer after writer. So let's say you had a bill about farming. Well, all of a sudden you get some asshole who throws in, I also want a bridge in Alaska, which has nothing to do with farming, and I'd also like it if you gave money to the gun lobby over here, and yet, so you vote against the bill because you don't want all these riders to go through.
Yeah.
But then they go, oh, you don't like farmers?
Yeah.
You hate farmers? So
Right.
you completely voted against giving farming
Which,
well,
excuse me, which we've been joined by the anonymous female, so I didn't want to ask her a question, and then you were like, wait a minute, when did she get here? Am I wrong that they passed, or I thought they passed something that they weren't supposed to be able to add, like tack on stuff
are you
to
thinking of a
bills?
line item veto?
Yeah.
Where the president can put
They
through
did
and
that
mark out
during
sections?
Obama. Yeah, they were the earmarks and all of that.
Yeah. But I was like, I thought that they passed that they weren't supposed to be able to add earmarks to
They
bills.
eventually got to a point, and I believe it did pass and become law, where you could do a line item veto. But that is something that people have pushed for years, and Congress kept denying, to be honest, because they love the earmarks.
Yeah.
So,
Which is
for your district if you can't sneak it into an important bill.
well, I think the good thing about being able to earmark bills was that was the vehicle in which a lot of compromise got done.
Right.
The bad part of being able to earmark a bill is, bills get bloated with a bunch of shit.
Yeah.
Just
So a lot of crap got done.
Yeah. I mean, like, right.
Yeah.
A lot of things got done, but also a lot of crap got
ask
done.
Ted, what's his face from Alaska, where that bridge went to. Went to the middle of nowhere and stopped. That's one of the most classic examples in American history of just tacking shit onto a bill.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I'll give you a local example. I always find this fascinating. So when they very first passed the streetcar under Clay Chastain's bill, what was this, 10 years ago at this point probably? Nobody actually read the bill. They thought it was just to build a streetcar. But really, when you started looking at the bill, they were going to shut down Broadway, which is clearly a major thoroughfare,
Right.
and Union Station at 31st Street, and build gondolas and stuff like that to take you up it, and all these other stupid things that were in there that everybody voted for because they literally thought it was just to build streetcars.
Just a streetcar.
Nobody read the bill.
Wow.
So, and it was just sheer nonsense. So, just dumb.
So the reason that we started all this conversation talking about Elizabeth Warren not being able to read Coretta Scott King's letter, and the reason that she wanted to read the letter was hoping to block the confirmation of of Jeff Sessions. So, let's.
Very nice.
I wanted to talk about Jeff Sessions for a minute. So when Trump announced the nomination for Sessions for Attorney General, one of the first things that happened was a tweet of support from David Duke.
Yeah.
And of course, David Duke is the head of the Klan, and who has thrown support toward Trump on more than one occasion. And Trump has, of course, claimed to know nothing about him, but has never denounced his support.
Yeah, I'll get back to that. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
It's sort of just a side note. I guess it came out recently. Somebody found a blurb in the New York Times from 1927 where Trump's father was arrested but not charged at a Klan rally in the Jamaica sector of New York City.
In Jamaica, Queens?
Big shock.
Yeah.
That is hilarious.
Yeah, there was a huge Klan rally in Jamaica, Queens, and I think 7 or 8 people got arrested, in which the only one not to actually get charged was Mr. Trump. And you can go look it up, do the Googles. Yeah. It's there. So yeah, it's interesting that a guy who has a father who has alleged ties to the Klan and doesn't know anything about David Duke.
Yeah.
But that's conjecture, of course. So, anyway.
Yeah. So in 80s,
Do they have pictures? Do they have proof?
No, but they have a couple articles where he's named and an address was given, and it's proven that it was his address, literally his address. So he was there, and he was arrested.
Right.
He wasn't charged with anything, so we can't say what he was arrested
What
for.
he's arrested for.
And there's no pictures of him in like a robe.
Right.
Somebody said, or there was somebody who claimed that he did. I was just talking about how Donald Trump's father was arrested at a Klan rally in 1927 in Jamaica, Queens.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Well,
and he wasn't charged with anything. He was let go. But there were 7 or 8 people who got arrested. They all got charged. He did not, but they did list his address in the article in 1927, and they were able to prove that it was in fact him, and he was there, and he was arrested.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Well, thank God he got arrested.
Yeah.
I mean, at least something, you know?
Right. But yeah, we're getting into the Jeff Sessions talk. Yeah.
I was gonna. You might be telling me I got a glass of beer.
So in 86, Reagan nominated Sessions to be a federal judge, which was going to be a lifetime appointment, and he was at that time, as Trump would say, extremely vetted and found to be quite racist, had Klan ties, and so he was eventually shut down, which of course led to the letter that Corettas King wrote then,
Sure.
saying who Mr. Sessions was and what his ideology was, and so now with the Republicans having control of the House and the Senate, he's put forth for Attorney General and confirmed. So,
did they confirm him?
He's confirmed.
In
yeah.
extension, I mean, they did the same thing where they didn't show up and do all that kind of stuff.
But are you sure he was confirmed?
Oh, yeah,
This was it today? Because as of this morning, he hadn't been confirmed.
No, I thought he was. Maybe I misread, but I thought
They
that
said
he
they
had,
were still trying to confirm him.
we shall
Or maybe
see.
I heard that wrong. It's possible.
Yeah.
I've been known to be wrong.
I guess of course, so many things concern me about Jeff Sessions. So you have a known racist, known Klan ties, now in charge of the Department of Government that would have any legal say over any cases that come to the government that have anything to do with race. And just to say the least, that is troubling. I'm a big believer that people grow, people change, but there's no evidence that Jeff Sessions has done much changing in his thought or ideology over these years. He maybe has become less vocal because everybody has. I mean, Strom Thurmond was, he was known for saying the N-word on the floor, and he was still holding his seat.
Let's not forget.
So it looks like he was
Byrd
confirmed.
Robert Byrd led the Ku Klux Klan for a long time.
Yeah.
And he was a lifelong Democrat and died in office in his 90s. But you don't hear a lot of outrage about Robert Byrd. You hear one about, a David Duke, who I think is a giant asshole, or Jeff Sessions, who I think is a giant asshole, and Strom Thurmond clearly proved himself to be an asshole.
Yeah.
LBJ was a clear asshole.
Yeah.
And so was Robert Byrd. I mean, it's not a party thing. I just get nervous that, again, the collective...
Yes.
Again, this is where there's smoke, there's going to be a fire kind of thing.
Yeah.
And everybody you're putting up as some sort of weird, questionable race tie of some sort.
That's what
bizarre.
makes... It's funny, like on the last podcast, I was showing some of the... protest signs against Obama, and I think everybody was who had not seen some of that stuff was shocked and a little shocked and a little outraged that that was even allowed, and so now.
And you just hope those people got the living shit beat out of them.
Yeah, you hope.
Somebody snapped a photo and then they got the living crap beat out of them right afterwards. I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, that would be my first inclination.
Yeah.
Even if I was at a Republican rally, if somebody's carrying a sign like that.
Yeah.
Like, dude, A, inappropriate, and B, you're a complete motherfucker. You should be...
He's a complete motherfucker. As opposed to a partial motherfucker.
Now, when you're holding a sign like the signs that you're showing us, that qualifies as complete.
Yeah, no, I fully and totally agree. And I think, like you said, it's if one or two people maybe had some questionable something in their past, but everybody you're putting forward has some, at least toward race, some toward race and sex.
Sure.
Have a questionable at best past. That does not bode well, to use as delicate language as I can, for what our country is facing for the next 4 years, which really does bring me back to everybody that is saying you know, just give him a chance, see what he does. You know, I think under most circumstances, you know, I know that there was a lot of people who weren't racist that did not like Obama because they did not like the policies he was going to put in place. But they were willing to give him a chance. But, you know, the people that he was surrounding himself on the cabinet, I mean, they were, you know, highly qualified, learned people, you know, some of the departments that were particularly science-based. You know, he's got, you know, Nobel laureate, people, on the cabinet to tackle these tough issues. But what we're finding is with the Trump administration is you're getting people with huge racist pasts or just massive donors that.
And I would even throw this: it's hard under the best of circumstances to put a cabinet together. Period. Mm-hmm. I mean, I think if anything, this makes me somewhat appreciate slightly more what George W. Bush did.
Yeah.
Like, he really did have a ton of smart, qualified, educated people around him of various ethnicities, genders, and everything. And I think that's why over time maybe he may grow in stature a little bit as a president. I don't know. That time will tell that.
Yeah, I was going to say, they always say history will tell, and I think it's already...
Truman, everybody hated Truman, and then all of a sudden he's on everybody's top 10 list of presidents. So, and I'm not saying George Bush will ever end up on that list, but I would say that he was also being advised by some of the smartest people with an ideology that, you know, was well informed, and they I truly believe they were probably trying to do the right thing and just had a different ideology. I think Trump doesn't have an ideology. I think his ideology is himself and whatever he's feeling at the moment. And once a lot of people around him, it will just go, yeah, that's a great idea. You know, and I don't want to screw with you at all, and, you know, and that's about it. Because he flips on his friends just as fast as he flips on
anything else.
Anything else. Like, it's crazy.
Yeah, I just think it's disturbing, you know, that you have a president who has said, verbatim that he gets the vast majority of his news from, right-wing publications and right-wing cable news.
I'm going to assume that probably Obama's watching a lot of MSNBC and reading the New York Times. Yeah, no, I mean, I'm not going to. I don't think that's not true.
Wall
Street Journal and Fox News.
But I think what does bother me about it is, there are things that come out on the ultra conservative, ultra conservative cable news. And then, a few hours later, maybe a day later, he tweets something almost verbatim.
Yeah. Versus,
maybe, Obama, who would watch, like, say, MSNBC or CNN or whatever. But then still have his room full of very smart people discuss the issue, and they try to put forward something measured. But
it's the one thing I do wonder about very largely, because I don't know that Obama didn't have different thoughts than what he said. I'm sure as soon as you hear about a situation, you immediately have a reaction. But he was a measured enough person, and I believe respected the office enough to go, no, I'm not going to say anything. I'm going to wait, discuss. He's a constitutional lawyer.
Exactly.
Thought it through. Although he had more executive orders overturned than any other president in history, I still believe he knew what the hell he was doing constitutionally and push the limits, but he knew what the limits were and tried to get some stuff through, and I don't blame him. Some of the stuff needed to get through.
Yeah.
I just don't think that Trump has the temperament or the ideology or honestly the intelligence to do that. Which is what you require in a leader. You can't just be reactive all the time. And even to George Bush's credit again, I'm not a Bush defender by any means, but 9/11 happened, and people make fun of him sitting there and reading the book. Really, he's like, I need to know the facts before I can do anything.
Right.
We need to know really what the hell's going on, you know, and get the facts together and let me know, and then let's figure out what we're going to do. Let's figure out our game plan. Mm-hmm. They didn't just flip out, you know, whereas I think Trump would have flipped out and just started sending nukes and bombs and ordering strikes on people that had nothing to do with it. It's like, we got 7 countries that we really hate. Yeah. Which, the bizarre thing is, those were the 7 countries that Obama identified as the worst countries. And primarily because they don't have centralized governments. They're just in mass chaos. There's nobody you can negotiate with or bargain with. And they're completely disorganized. So I don't even have necessarily a problem. I didn't have a huge problem with the travel ban, although I thought it was awkward that he did come out then and say, but we really will let Christians in probably. That was idiotic. But if you actually read the executive order, there's nothing about religion in there, and they were the 7 countries that Obama did identify, and that was not his doing. But I think he used it as an excuse to enforce his racist policy.
Exactly.
And again, it was a 90-day moratorium on it, so it wasn't like you could never come in the country.
Rudy Giuliani went on TV and told his interviewer that Donald was asking Rudy how to do a Muslim ban legally, essentially.
Sure. No, I totally believe that.
Yeah.
But I think that's different than what the executive order said.
Yeah.
And while I'm not happy, I'm exceptionally happy to see the travel ban lifted and not being enforced. Like,
of course.
Everybody knows I don't even believe in borders, period. I just think they're stupid.
Yeah.
I think it's an arbitrary river that just divides 2 pieces of the land and we call it a country and we go, hey, it's crazy.
Yeah.
But, so I just don't like the idea of borders, period. But I do think, again, if you're the Ninth Circuit and the most liberal court in the United States, they did not technically go by the law. They inserted their own feelings into it, and they do all the time. Judges do constantly.
Yeah.
And I truly believe if it was petitioned to the Supreme Court, it would probably pass. Only because if on the letter of the law and the way the bill was written, and they were very careful about how they write these bills. And that asshole Chris Kobach from Kansas, one of the biggest ones who writes a shit ton of these bills. Yeah. And he should. You want to talk about the sign of Obama being hung up by a tree? That's a dude I'd love to see swinging from a tree at any point that he wants to be swinging. He has done more harm to minorities in this country than anybody else, and illegal immigrants, and has actively tried to prevent people from voting, tries to kick people out of the country constantly. Like, he is, in my mind, one of the worst racists that you will ever stumble upon, and has the ability to write laws to try to get them enforced, and I think it's disgusting. But on the letter of the law, which is what a federal judge is supposed to interpret, they probably made a ruling that would be overturned. Well, I think because there is a legal way around it. There's always a legal way around it.
I think the problem had they not put that one caveat that Christians would get preferential treatment.
Not in the bill. He just said it.
No, I know, but I'm saying, but had that not even been put out there in the ether, that, you know, I don't think they would have had any legal standing to block it.
They still didn't have.
But because, I think...
Well, they were questioning the government's people, the judges were, and they couldn't answer the questions. They didn't have...
I thought it was poorly
and even
executed.
they said, this, I can't answer that, or I can't, however they said it. But it was, because he, being Trump, dumbass that he is, decided to tweet about it. They've got all of that. I mean, that's things that people can use in court.
That is not admissible in the court. What you have to do is you have to rule on the executive order as it is written, because that's what becomes law. You can't rule on the tweet. You can't rule.
They can rule the intent behind it.
That you can absolutely cannot.
That's what they did, though.
I know that that's exactly what they did, and that's my problem with federal judges, because this is when you start to have a very activist court.
But it was two Democrats and 2 Republicans.
It was 3 judges and one.
It was 4.
It was one of which was Republican.
Mm-hmm. It was 2 Republicans and
it was a 3-0 vote.
And they had another Republican judge look at it.
I understand.
There were 2 Republicans and 2 Democrats.
That judge did not get a vote. It was a 3-0 vote, and one Republican who was appointed by Bush. And we can look it up. So if I'm wrong, then I'm wrong. But I know the only Republican judge was appointed by Bush, and that, I think, when you start reinterpreting the law in your role as a judge, that's dangerous. You might not like a law, but when it is legally written, then I think you take the argument to the next step. And I do believe the way that it is written would be passed, because there was not a religious clause in there. He was just stupid enough to tweet about it later, and that's not admissible in the court.
Yeah, I think Trump himself did himself the disservice by saying that he was going to do a Muslim ban, and the first thing you do is ban 7 countries that are majority Muslim.
That he picked from Obama's list of 7
countries. And I'm not saying that Obama didn't put that list together, which is how he felt that he had a legal standing.
The executive order deals with the fact that they don't have central governments that you can actually verify these people with that are trying to come in. So that. But
I think the other problem comes to.
And I'm not defending the ban. I want everybody to come into America. I love it. It's great.
Yeah, I think the other problem is what you were saying is that when asking, the people in Trump's administration to explain it, they couldn't explain it beyond.
They honestly don't need to. The executive order is written as it's written. It's law. There was nothing that violated any sort of intent clause that has been precedent for years. If you want to write that into the law, it's going to get booted in a second. They were exceptionally careful about how they wrote that law.
Yeah. I don't think that they're as confident as you think they are, because they've already started talking about just writing a new one.
And that's because they have one judge in Massachusetts who did uphold the law, and they have one in San Francisco who denied the law. And so this is a question of, do you really want to force this issue? And is this the right time to do it? Or is there just another easier way around it? And let's see what the path of least resistance is.
Yeah, which I think will wind up being they'll write another one.
Sure,
they'll write it. They'll write.
But it'll be struck down by the ninth. The Ninth Circuit is always known for being exceptionally activist and being hyper liberal. That's what they are. So to my mind, a lot of good things have come from that, and a lot of overstepping of what are the traditional legal jobs that you have also come out of it. So there's 2 ways to see it. It's a good thing the ban is not in place. I'm all in favor of that. I am absolutely not in favor of activist judges who just put their own feelings and opinions into what a law is.
Yeah,
that's like the Warren Court in the 60s and 70s.
Yeah,
great things came out of it, but it was an absolute violation of the Constitution. Yeah, the way that they were so activist.
Yeah, I always fight with that one purely because, if you were going back to the civil rights days, legally, a lot of the horrific shit that was happening was legal.
Up until the point that there was a constitutional amendment.
This
is not legal at all.
Yeah, and I guess that's what I'm saying. I struggle with right and legal, because there's a lot of stuff that's it is in a lot of states, and I remember tripping over this couple years ago. But in a lot of states, they have a vagrant law that's still on the bill, still on the rolls for a lot of states. And basically, it says if you're walking the streets and you don't have at least $1 in your pocket, you're a vagrant, and they can take you to jail. Now, nobody actually does anything with that law.
But somebody could.
Because it's actually...
It would be immediately overturned.
Yeah.
Because there's no...
Not necessarily. It depends on who it is and what judge you get.
It actually was overturned on the Plaza, actually, where they tried to ban panhandlers, and a lawyer did pro bono work to get it overturned, so now you can beg on street corners again. So it really, you have to have some sort of constitutional basis. And again, I think of it as being a defense lawyer. I come from a family of lawyers.
Right.
My brother once got assigned a case, and again, I hate personal stories, but he once got assigned to defend a stepfather that he knew was raping a daughter. But the system is in place so that everybody gets the best possible defense that they can get.
Yeah.
He has to do it because it was pro bono, where you lose your license.
Right.
And so, whether or not you like the job in its entirety or not, you have to live by the rule of what the job is, because the system is the system. When you become an activist judge and start setting law, that's actually a violation of what our Constitution is all about. So yes, sometimes you have to let shitty things through in order that something better will happen, or you protect somebody who's innocent from really getting screwed.
Yeah, and I definitely have seen cases where you knew that the judge did not want to rule that way, but legally they had to, and they said so. Like this is horrible. I hate doing this, but legally I have to.
And I would have been great with that.
Yeah.
If they had done that, I would have said, I encourage you to appeal this to the Supreme Court. I wish you would take your case further. The spirit of the law violates what we feel is in the Constitution, but legally we don't have a legal standing to overturn the ban. Let's take it forward to the next step.
All right. So, last but not least, at least of what I had on my list, National Security Advisor Michael Flynn discussed U.S. sanctions against Russia with Russia's ambassador before the election, and then lied to Pence about it. So the whole, we have no ties to Russia. We've had no communications with Russia. I guess my question is, what, if anything, at this point happens now that we find out that wasn't entirely true?
Nothing, people lie all the time. Unless you're lying under oath, it's really not a criminal act. Do I think it's disgraceful? Absolutely. I am by no means a Mike Pence fan by any stretch of the imagination. He does strike me as the one person I have seen in this entire administration that actually cares about the institutions themselves.
Yes.
And seems to have a healthy respect for government, whether or not I agree with him. He reminds me of a George Bush book. I disagree with you so much ideologically, but I will respect the fact that you adhere to the administrations and institutions that we have.
Right.
And work within those. So I think he probably, Pence, I'm sure, was pissed.
Yeah.
And Pence is going to be the swing guy in this administration, if anybody is, because he was chosen specifically to work with a Republican Congress who really does not like Trump at all.
True.
And without Pence, Trump is done. He's just done.
Yeah, I mean, because he does need
what he wants, but he's not going to get a single dime for any one of them.
Yeah, because he definitely needs that one person that actually knows how this thing works.
How the system works.
Yeah.
This is why you don't kick out everybody who knows about government and start all over. Yeah. Because we have a government for a reason with rules, and they've been around for, 300 years now?
But that's the thing that nobody seems to like anymore.
I think people enjoy change for change's sake sometimes because they don't understand how the machination really works. But the machination of actual government prevents so many bad things from happening. I mean, horrendously bad things from happening. And sometimes it works the reverse where it takes too long to move to prevent bad things. Again, and I would argue civil rights being a great example, like the fact that it took an additional 100 years from the end of the Civil War to where you can vote and buy a house, I find absolutely on the face of it absurd when we had already fought 3 wars at that point. Yeah. Not 4 if you want to include Korea. Mm-hmm. And people were dying for their country on the promise that they were going to be accepted as citizens and rewarded for their loyalty to the country.
Exactly.
And it did not happen. So there are times where it moves too slowly.
Yeah.
But at the same time, the slowness is there for a reason.
Yeah.
And it's to try to prevent just really idiotic, rash things from happening.
Well, I always look at the American government as a ship, as a cruise liner. I think most people want the ship to maneuver like like a cigarette boat.
Sure.
Like they want it to maneuver quickly and agilely, and but it maneuvers like a cruise liner. It takes a lot of time and effort to stop the boat. It takes time and effort to turn the boat, and you got to remember, with a cruise liner, you've got a couple hundred passengers that even if you were able to turn the boat very quickly, you're going to knock everybody onto the floor trying to jerk the boat in another direction. Yeah.
100 will be pissed and 100 will be happy.
Yeah, I mean,
that's just the way the country works.
Like, yes, we did jerk the boat. It was to avoid that iceberg, but and like I say, and 100 of them are going to be very happy we avoided the iceberg, and there's going to be 100 of them that got injured. That got injured in the fall. Yeah, there's going to be 100 of them that got injured in the fall, and they're going to be super pissed that they didn't have pre-warning that to lash themselves to something.
Was it a black iceberg or a white iceberg?
Yeah, really. That sometimes that is the very question. Was that black ice?
Did that iceberg go God or not? I just need to know really fast. I mean, it's just dumb. And you cannot get the idiocy out of the country. What you can do is slowly and generationally change minds to the point where there is such a popular mass that it becomes inevitable.
Yeah.
And that is when all the best changes in this country have come through. My humble opinion.
Actually, I think that actually might be as good a place as any to stop today. And in closing today's podcast, I'm going to close with the toast that started it all for me. And I want to thank everybody out there in Podcast Land for listening. And to good times with good people.